You found us, and now you're listening to Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast, where we have conversations with veterans ranging from our service time, development, family, motivation, and best practices for veterans. Welcome and enjoy the show. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back for another Veterans Chat here on the old Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris, and we have Navy veteran and host of Movement Monday co-hosting today with us, Dan Hurd. Dan, welcome to another Veterans Chat, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. It's always a pleasure to be here. But one thing I want to point out is this is my first Veterans Chat that's not about OPAD or Ride with Dan USA.
You're just coming on as another host here on Heart of a Volunteer. That's nice, man. It's good. You know, and the thing is, we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics, right, of like having two co-hosts on a show, doing an interview-based kind of podcast and things like that. But let me ask you this, man. You've been here for a little over a month. And, you know, we were talking about podcasting even before your accident, right? You weren't convinced. But now that you're in the podcasting game, what do you think so far?
Well, if before I got here, I was all amped up about it. I'm like, yeah, I got something to do, man.
Right.
So I kind of set myself up for success or failure, depending on how you want to look at it. Before I even like put myself on a mic, I was like, I'm doing a podcast, everyone. Yeah. And I think I set a date. I was like, I'm going to do it the week after Thanksgiving before anybody else. Even like before I even have a choice, like, or an episode even done.
Or a guest. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was, I think at first a month ago, I was unsure about it when I finally got put on the headphones and sat in front of the mic. You're like, just start talking. I'm like, what do I talk about? I don't know what to talk about, man.
Right.
And you know, that's now where I'm at right now. I feel a lot more comfortable on the microphone. I feel, that it's helped me a lot because of the way that we've been doing it, the way that you were like, hey man, you got to have an outline.
Right. The process.
It's the process. Exactly. It's the process of doing everything, getting the routine down and just hearing yourself and hearing others as well.
Right.
While you're on the microphone and have the headset on it. It's totally different than wearing earbuds and talking on a cell phone call.
It definitely is. Hey, so let's talk about some of that. And first, I'd like to ask, you know, since you're a lot of people that don't do podcasting really kind of see podcasting as like their favorite show, and that's all of podcasting. But now that you're actually into it, you've been listening to other podcasts and just kind of getting ideas. What do you think a podcast is?
Well, so I look at it as it's a digital radio show. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not actually on the radio. You can bring it with you and stuff like that. But I look at it as more so as a digital conversation on a topic.
And you know what? And I like how you say that, man. A conversation on a topic digitally. You know, my grandpa, he was like asking me about it, and I tried to tell him it was a radio show, and he asked where he could listen to it. And then, of course, it's only on the internet. But now here's the thing, folks. You can download episodes and listen to them offline. It's way too easy. So, but hey, man, you know, the topic is the big thing. It's like, do you have a message? You know, a lot of people like, you know, hey, I got something to say.
Yo, Drake, what up? I got something to say.
And
exactly.
When you got something to say, a podcast is a good place to go to do that. So, Dan, how did, talking about that, you know, you've got to have your content, and then from the content, you kind of develop your show title, your podcast title, or your series title. How did that work for you when it came to Movement Monday?
Well, for content, something I was really engaged on doing was I wanted to continue my mission. Obviously, I have one pedal at a time movement. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to continue one pedal at a time like I was before, but I still wanted to bring awareness.
Right.
and this gave me that opportunity, to continue sharing my movement, but also share other people's movements, and their journeys and whatever they were doing to help themselves and others. And that's kind of what triggered that movement portion of it.
Right, for the title.
For the title, and the content is a lot of it due to do that. But the Monday portion came because, unfortunately, a lot of people I meet, and you probably know the same amount of people, everybody dreads Mondays. A lot of people dread Mondays.
Right.
Especially if they're doing that typical, 9 to 5 job, even if it's not actually on a Monday. I have friends that their Mondays are Wednesdays.
Right, absolutely.
And they hate when they have to go in at 6 o'clock at night on a Wednesday to go to the night shift because they just had Monday and Tuesday off.
Right.
So whatever day Monday is for you, that's, we want to show people that even on those hard days that you don't look forward to, we want to give you something to look forward to. We want to give you that motivation that you're looking for.
Right. And the nice thing is, man, is that Movement Monday, the way you've got it structured is it's on Monday. It kind of gives you all week to kind of think about something that's like kind of bigger than yourself. And kind of see if you want to get involved. Does it affect you?
Yeah.
So,
and what else is amazing about that is, we get people that may not have thought about a certain organization or a movement that we're going to be talking about and be like, man,
yeah,
I have one of the guests that we're bringing on is ADHD. Mm-hmm. You may hear this person talk about their event and everything that they want to share with us.
Right.
And be like, man, maybe that's me, or man, maybe that's my kid.
Right.
And not even thought of it before because you just weren't aware of the information.
The other part of that is I can't remember the numbers you were giving out, that the percentages of people that have ADHD. Do you remember those numbers offhand?
I think it was like 11% for adults and children for the United States.
Right.
Of the population. I think that ends up being I think it was like 12 million people or something like that.
Right.
It was a high number either way.
I think the big thing from the episode is, it is very, very good for parents, that may have kids or do have kids with ADHD. But at the same time, I think it's for people out there also so they can understand what these families are going through. I think that's the hardest thing is not knowing, right? That people are going through hardships or have struggles, and that there's actually people that are leaning forward into the ruck straps to help them people.
And keep that forward moment going.
And that's why I think Movement Monday's going to be it's going to be good, man. It's going to be good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Hey, but I have a question about, and I'm sure a lot of people have this, is how'd you come up with Heart of Volunteer?
Good question. John David Wheeler, J.D. Wheeler, he came on and did an episode. He did a SOG episode, one of the very first ones. I had been talking to J.D. He'd just come back from the Peace Corps. And he reminded me of just kind of the spirit, right? The whole spirit of being back in Hawaii, being a part of a great team. And it reminded me of a poem that I'd seen tacked up on the board outside my office. And one of the lines on there was, "Never fault the heart of a volunteer." And so Heart of a Volunteer just kind of came from there. And then Veterans Podcast.
That's very cool, man. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's been good, man. We call it HOV from time to time, but it's Heart of a Volunteer. So hey, you've got your message, man. And so, folks, as we're talking out here, I'm hoping that this episode kind of gives you a chance to kind of see that this podcasting thing, it just takes an application of effort, right? Just kind of, if you have, something to talk about, and you want to get it out there, this is very easy to do. One of the things you do after that is, select your format. And there are, what do we got here? Seven different formats that we found online. Yeah,
we found 7 of the most common ones, and one of them is the 7th one's really a hybrid.
Yeah, kind of a mix of any of them, really.
Mm-hmm.
Now, folks, you've got 2 different versions of this, right? So almost any of these that you're doing, other than repurposed, right, and solo commentary, you can do with multiple hosts. Like right now, Dan and I are on an episode together as co-hosts. If we had somebody come back on, let's say Alex came on, right, and we were talking to Alex, that would be a one-on-one interview, only because Dan and I are the co-hosts interviewing somebody coming on. So you can do it solo, or you can have somebody on the show with you. You don't even have to bring on guests. It can just be you and your co-host just having banter or talking about just about anything.
Or just you, not even a co-host.
Right. Could be just you. So you got your one-on-one interviews, which
I find to be the funnest.
they are fun. They are a lot of fun. That's the one you did with your next episode coming out. Episode 3 is an interview.
Yeah, it's a one-on-one interview. But even episode 2 is a little bit.
Just a little bit of mix. That's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. It's more of a solo, I think,
Solo commentary.
with a little bit of one-on-one on there.
Yep, and the solo commentary is the second one. Now, just so people can get an idea of what the one-on-one interviews kind of looks like, right? That's your Joe Rogan type show, or Guards Down, that's hosted by Army vet Greg Washington. That's another one-on-one interview type format. The next one is a solo commentary, and they're a little bit harder to do because you have to do a lot of preparation. We're talking about shows like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, if you're a history buff.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's a great one. Tides of History is another great one. Those are scripted, right? You're either going to come on with the knowledge and you're just going to kind of talk around it with some notes, or you're going to write something up, and it's going to be kind of a dramatic type thing. Those episodes are fun to do, but they're very, very hard. I don't do any solo episodes, or at least I try not to, unless it's just information about the podcast. Your next one is a panel. That's just like a discussion with multiple guests, and kind of kicking around a topic, right? Something like that.
Yep.
And then something that's pretty cool is a fictional storytelling, right? So this would be, or your nonfiction narrative storytelling, which would be something like The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe, right? Very good episode, very good podcast where he comes on and basically kind of reads from his book and then brings in some information from his listeners that send him stories and stuff of how they're doing. But fictional storytelling, that's just, coming on and telling, horror stories. If you like to tell stories, tall tales, or mix a story from here to there and make something up, the fictional storytelling is pretty cool.
Man, I feel like that'd be actually a really good one for you to do at some point. You got the voice for it, I think.
I would like to go in and just kind of toy around with that a little bit.
You should, man.
Be a lot of fun.
And then the last one is Repurposed, which is for NPR and TED Talks more so.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that more for me.
No, so like you've got like the TED Talks, right? If you've ever watched a TED Talk on YouTube or internet or on TEDTalk.com, you'll notice it's all video formatted. Well, TED Talk has a podcast where they take the audio from those videos and make it so you can take it on the go and just listen to it without having to have to watch anything.
Yeah,
which is really nice. Repurposed, like NPR, they do their news, so they've got like their live news, and they'll break it into chunks and put it together and reformat it so it's kind of on the go, right? You can kind of get it, listen to it for 15 minutes, and get back to what you're doing. So, yeah, very good. And then the hybrid, folks, is kind of a mix, right? It's kind of a mix and match. I guess we kind of do a little bit of that here on the show, kind of off and on. We've got the one-on-one interview. We've kind of done a panel with a kind of a discussion. We did fishing at Lake Texoma, so we had kind of multiple guests on. We really don't do any nonfiction narrative storytelling. That would have been a lot of fun to do, but that'd been like war stories, right? With dramatic drums in the back and sounds of rifles firing and just kind of building a big story.
Yeah, I think that one would. I think for Veteran Podcast, I think that one would be a difficult one to do at certain points, depending on the stability of the veteran.
Very labor intensive though.
That as well.
So folks, you can think of your. Let's go back to the nonfiction narrative storytelling, right? If you go, this is just an idea for somebody that's just kind of out there thinking about stuff. If you're constantly on the go and you're meeting people, right? And let's just say you're in the business world, right? You go to a business and you're talking to them about something that that you're representing, and you're talking to some of these people, and they come up with they just got a great presence about them. You can interview them on your phone and bring that back and basically kind of build a story through talking about the conversation that you had. So you would basically be doing what we're doing right now, and then we would introduce an interview piece from, a month before and bring it in and present it that way. So tons of ideas and ways you could do it. To go back to the dual host or the multi-host, two of the positives for that is it takes a lot of pressure off of you. Having somebody else on your show, it kind of gives you ability to kind of build a little bounce back and forth like Dan and I have been doing. It's fun because you're not alone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to match times. If you're like Dan lives here at LZ Ranger, so it's easy for us to come to the studio and work. But if you got a friend you're trying to do it with and they've got kids, job, other obligations with the family and things like that, it could be a little hard to put out stuff that doesn't feel like it's pressured, right? So, but hey, as you find your spot out there on the interwebs, just think about the kind of format that you're going to have. That's going to be your delivery. And then from there, you can start thinking about how long do you want it to be. A lot of people think like, who cares, right? You got Joe Rogan out there with 2, 3, 4 hour episodes. You got some, tons of other episodes that are 2, 3 hours long. But if you can't hold your listener, then it's just kind of for naught.
Well, and a lot of those ones that do the longer episodes, like Joe Rogan does, he actually clips them down to sections
and does his JREs, right?
And does his JREs, and that's where he gets most of his viewerships and listeningships and all that stuff. So
right,
it's not from the whole episode. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do listen to his 2 to 6 hour episodes, but majority of the time it's broken up into 5 minute to 30 minute to up to an hour probably.
Right, absolutely. No, you know what? That's a good point too. Is that if you do come across a podcast that's got 2 hour episodes and you notice that there's kind of like these rises and falls, there's a fast forward button on there, folks. You can fast forward 30 seconds. You can use your finger to slide it along. You can start and stop podcasts at any time. So really when you think about it, so you're putting together your show, right? And you're thinking, man, these episodes are going to be like 2 hours because once I get going, that's just how it is. You can go back and edit it and break it up into 2 and bring it in as part 2, so we're 30 minutes. Or you can do it as an hour and just let your listeners know. They should know this already, but they can start and stop a podcast as many times as they want. I'm guilty of doing long episodes, especially SOG episodes, but that's just the name of the game when it comes to veterans. I'm not going to tell a veteran, hey man, we're at an hour and 15 minutes and this has been dragging on. It ain't my place.
Yeah,
it ain't my place to do it, so I don't do it.
Well,
so
that's for the saga. That's definitely what it's for. But I do know from experience for the veteran chats, you're pretty hard on 45 minutes.
I am. You're absolutely right. I've cut some folks off, and I apologize to them later. But we do have to keep the listener in mind. If we want to get the message out, we have to keep it contained.
Of course, and the only reason I bring that up is because I was victim of that.
Right.
I think in the last one.
Yeah.
So I get it. And that's why all the episodes I've ever done on a podcast are typically between 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I went with Movement Mondays. I wanted to get about a 45-minute average, but if the material's not fully, or the material's like shoved out really faster than anticipated, 30 minutes, it's got to be 30 minutes. But if somebody's going out and they're doing a really great conversation, we're just get at 45 minutes, I'm not going to do, hey man, we're at our limit.
Right.
I'm going to let it keep going, and hopefully it's within 60 minutes. So that's the goal with Movement Mondays. But I know like the sagas, you already said you were guilty of it. You've had a couple that are 2 hours long.
Right.
But those 2 hour ones are really powerful episodes.
Right.
And I think that, I know you try to keep it roughly between an hour-ish. But I've seen quite a few of them on there as well that are an hour and a half.
And the thing is, and we'll talk about equipment here next. I don't do any post-production, right? So I don't go back and cut stuff out. I keep the original interview, the original conversation with that veteran. I try to keep it as true to form as I can.
Yeah, and I know you're really good at that. I will hopefully get to that point with Movement Mondays. I'm not perfect, everyone, but I'm getting there.
Well, hey, we're gonna get into how you've gotten better, but let's hit the part first and talk about equipment, right? So I think the format leads to the equipment that you're going to use, folks. So here's the thing: if you're going to be doing one-on-one interviews and they're just going to be kind of not really hip pocket, but a way you can just, use minimal amount of equipment, then you definitely want to go that way. Here on the podcast for HOV, our goal is to have as many people on as we can. So I've got 4 microphones here. I've got I'll just go through it all. We've got the complete setup here, the Rodecaster Pro with 4 pod mics, boom arms, headphones, all the cables, wires, and all that kind of stuff. That's about $2,000. That's not even with all the, a couple of the subscriptions for copyright-free music and things like that. So that's $2,000. But the thing is, with all that, I could do phone calls. I can have somebody on the computer, and I can have 4 people in here, and I can have 7 people going at the same time on an episode. So that right there to me is important for this type of podcast. Once again, if you're just doing one-on-one or you're doing solo commentary, you just need a mic. 1 microphone is all you need. So whatever fits you is the way to go.
Yeah, and with that, it's no budget options. People that don't have the availability to spend this money, especially this year, as long as you have a cell phone, a smartphone, you have a microphone already on it. If you decide that you want to do like a little bit of an increase and get one of the wired microphones that could connect into your phone, they're like $20.
Yeah,
they're not very expensive, but I know like my goal is to get back on the road. That as you knew, and hopefully everybody else now knows,
absolutely.
That's been my plan since even starting Movement Monday. But the more I'm getting the practice that I'm doing, the more I realize that I might want to do this on the road.
Right.
So I'm already looking into different budget options and stuff that I can use on the road while with the equipment that I have, and I'm looking at stuff anywhere between $200 to $400 to have a studio style equipment that's on the go.
Right. Very, very compact. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, man, I think that's going to work out good for you.
Yeah, I think
it's going
to work great. And, I think it's going to really just show people that, one, even if you don't have the budget, you can do whatever you want. And 2, if you have a little bit of budget, you can get pretty good equipment for what you're using.
Right. Hey, let's take a little break, and we'll kind of showcase a little bit of the Rodecaster Pro with a little mid-reel. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go. All right. Now that you're listening to the podcast, take a moment on the service or the app that you're listening to this episode on and subscribe and comment. If you've already subscribed, thank you. Now, please add a comment. This helps the podcast in searches and informs others about what to expect from the show. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Man, I love that.
Yeah. Hey, so here's the thing, folks. That right there was brought in live, right into the episode seamlessly. There was no pause there or any type. Dan and I never even uncrossed our arms or got away from the microphones. We just looked at each other and smiled. So those are things that you can do. Of course, that's the Rodecaster Pro. And I'm not telling people to go out there and spend $600 on this thing, even though it is amazing. But you can do things like that. So it's really nice to do.
I just love the fact that it's self-contained. You don't need to have a computer. You don't need to have your cell phone other than uploading.
Right.
Like you can literally do everything from this.
Mm-hmm. You can.
Yeah, there's no internet connection to this, right? You can't upload right to this from this.
Right, you can't.
You have to have some other external thing for that.
Yeah, but it's got the micro SD card, and you can get a micro SD reader for anything, even the iPhone.
Your phones have them,
and you can throw them right there. So easy,
way too easy. It's amazing.
So Dan, like I said, man, having been doing the podcasting thing for about a month, what do you think is critical for putting putting together a good episode? Once you've got the idea and all that kind of stuff, what is, your title, what you're going to be talking about? What's critical, man?
Practice, man. Lots and lots of practice. Something I've noticed is I've been doing a lot of practice and just getting used to the microphone and wearing the headset, but I'm also practicing the flow.
Your delivery and
the delivery of how I want to say it, how I want to make, the tones differences and stuff.
Right.
I don't know what that's actually called.
Inflection.
Thank you. The inflection.
Oh, word. Watch. Yeah.
Yeah. The inflection that we give through our voices are really critical for what we're doing here. If you can just be really monotone or you can be really amped up about it. So, practice is a huge thing for me, at least in this month. I think if I didn't do as much practice as I have, coming in here from about 9 a.m. till about 4 or 5 o'clock at night, I'm looking at this as a job pretty much.
Right.
Take a little lunch break, get up, to take a couple breaks to stretch my legs, and not that I can really stretch them out.
You're absolutely right, man, about that practice. Getting on the mic and kind of getting your voice. Here's the thing, folks. When you're listening, when you're recording something, especially when you're going through a high-performance microphone, your voice is going to sound very dynamic, very, very dynamic. And you have to get used to that because it's almost like you're like inner thinking because you're speaking and thinking at the same time, and you can get a little caught up.
Oh, yeah.
But you can get an amazing rhythm going and sound amazing.
Yeah, you really can. And it's like, that's the other part about the practice that I want to talk about more is when I first put these headphones on, like I've done podcasts with you, I've done them with other people as well. But I haven't done many inside the studio where I actually listen to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And something I was saying earlier is it's like hearing yourself for the first time talking, you're like, man, am I talking in my head or am I talking out loud? Which one is going on?
Right.
Even though you're doing both. But so it's crazy stuff how it works, but practice is huge. I think that if you can get on a mic however much as you can, just have phone calls, have conversations, talk to yourself, whatever it is, practice is a huge thing. But
so you talked about the practice, man, but how do you get like good organization? Like, what do you want to say and get it to where it's making sense, good segues and transitions?
Well, I'm going to say this first is this next one I did not want to do. It's outlining.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this and be like, man, I hate outlines too. Right. I'm just on the flow. I just do it. I was like, go, man. And that's exactly what I said to you. I was like, man, I don't really do this. I just kind of do it. Whatever comes to my mind, that's what I say. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, man, I see that in your videos. And I went back and I watched some of my videos and I was just like, man, I'm like that. Yeah, guys, this is what's going on. Oh, squirrel, right? Oh, dog bone. What? So I noticed that I wasn't staying on track. I wasn't staying on that path of flow as much as I was, but not consistent.
Right.
And I think consistency is a huge thing. Staying consistently with the outline, staying on track, not losing focus of where you're trying to get to, because that's the difference of making a 45-minute episode or a 2-hour episode. And you're like, oh man, I didn't even tell them what I wanted to talk about. Right.
And the way I look at it, and I think I kind of described this to you, it helps you to get from the beginning to the end, and you're not losing anything that your veteran co-host or your guest that's coming on, what they want to get out of the episode. Right. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, folks. It's like, if you get an outline sent to you from any podcast, that's them trying to do the very best they can with your information. So definitely fill that thing out in entirety and give them something really to work with. You have a really great episode coming off of a really well formatted outline, which you've been working on good, man. Yeah. You're getting it down.
I'm working on it. It's an everyday progress. And that's what I love about this is there's always room for progress, and there's always room to get better at it. Mm-hmm. And like I told you a month ago, I'm not an outline guy. I'm not good at words. Mm-hmm. And I put myself down a lot in the first week I was here. I was just like, dude, this is not, I can't do this.
You can't here.
And I told you as soon as I said it, like, man, that's just how I do it. I tell myself I can't do something and I'm going to get it done. Just give me enough time.
Yeah.
And I think it was after that first week when you were like, listen, man, we don't do cants in here.
Yeah.
Stop saying it because it's getting tiring.
And here's the thing, man. You after that, you were all over it.
Yeah, I jumped on and I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out. I told my listeners and my followers that I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Yep. Hey, another way, folks, to kind of get your practice in is, call your folks, call a friend and be like, hey, I just want to talk to you a little bit and ask you some questions. I'm going to record this and listen to it later. I'll send it to you so you can listen to it. But practice having conversations with people and then go back and listen to it and see if you've got some repetitive words, right? And words you say all the time. Like I'm always saying awesome, right?
That being said is
another one. The word awesome for me, it's just like when I'm talking to a veteran, that's how I feel. I feel awesome. So when I talk about a veteran, I always say awesome.
Yeah.
But no, you pick up on that kind of stuff and you get a chance to kind of maneuver yourself away from that kind of speech, wasting certain areas here and there, like I do on a continuous basis.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. That being said, is a huge thing I say a lot of, and they'll hear that a lot in one of my episodes. Mm-hmm. But it's not just that. Like I say a lot, and I still say
mm-hmm.
but I've noticed in this last month that I say it less.
Right.
And every time I hit record and then hit stop the recording and go back and just listen to what I just said, I'm like, man, I just said 15 times.
Right.
All right, I'm going to do this whole thing again, and I'll do it again, and I get down to like 7 or 8.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, I'm getting better.
Sometimes it's good to have those little transition points in there. It kind of helps, it helps you, it helps everybody else. So it's,
of course,
as long as it's not excessive, it's not too bad.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to get down to 0 because that's just not. If somebody hears that,
that's NPR.
Then they're like, that's not Dan.
That's not right.
That's not Dan talking.
That's crazy.
That's part of who I am. It's saying those ums every once in a while, but I don't want to say it 20, 30 times, and take up that minute of time that I could have said something more impactful than
Right. Dan, what I used to do when I was there in school is I would practice going through the Roadcaster, and I would literally would say my notes in preparation for an exam, and I would record it, and then I would just put it on my phone, and I would go for a walk and just keep listening to it. So that worked out really well for me and helped out a lot.
Hey, that's actually a really good idea for any soon to be graduating high school students or college students.
Yeah,
good way to get some training and studying.
It's one of those life hacks, man. Life hacks. All right, so hey, folks, once you've got your practice down, you're feeling kind of froggy, you want to jump out there, you're going to want to start organizing your topics, right? Organize your topics, get your guests lined out. Here on Heart of a Volunteer, we reach out to veterans, right, and other guests, because sometimes we have, we're going to be having non-veterans on, mental health personnel and folks like that. They're doing great stuff in the medical field for veterans. But they also reach out to us, right? So like for the SOG episode and Movement Mondays, those episodes kind of have a content that the veteran or the guest brings to the show. So those are kind of easy to do, right? They're bringing their own topic, and all you're doing is just getting your head around it and then coming up with some really good questions to help your guest or your, for us, the veteran co-host, to come on and just have a really, really great episode. Dan, how do you do like selecting your guests and things like that?
Well, so a lot of it depends on, for Movement Monday, it's a little bit different than like for the Saga. You guys, it's going to be a veteran. You kind of have an idea where it's going to go.
Right.
With Movement Mondays, it's kind of a blanket of things. It could be a cause, an organization, a journey, pretty much whatever somebody is doing to create movement. And that movement, the way we come to decide if they're doing the movement that we're looking for is if they're bringing positivity for themselves,
right,
and others.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there doing it for themselves and don't even realize that they're doing it for other people.
Right.
Which is episode 3.
Heck yeah.
So definitely check that out. He episode 3, he didn't know he was doing a movement.
I like how you snuck that in there.
But he is. He is. And so, those different things all, that's the main headline. That's how we figure out, all right, are you a movement? Mm-hmm. But then we go into say like the hows, the whys, the wheres. Like, where did you start? Who do you serve? Not every organization or every movement that we're going to talk to is doing a national or a worldwide thing.
Right.
Some of these people are doing regionals. Like, we're going to talk to one that's for Central Tennessee,
Right.
and then we have others that are. We have one that's in North Dakota that is doing 4 states right now, but their goal is to be nationwide. So
Right.
we got growing ones. We got ones that are just on a bike tour, just to do their own thing.
Now, how do you collect up your information so that you get you can get all this stuff? How do you do that?
Well, we have an outline. It's a questionnaire outline. So what we do is we'll go in and we'll ask questions for pretty much the outline of how the episode will go, but we're asking them to give us the information to fill in these parts. Because Movement Monday is so umbrellaed, I guess.
Broad, yeah.
It's definitely, it really is up to the guest or co-host that's coming on to give us much information so that we can actually build that episode with the questions based off the answers that they give us in the information. If they give us one line questions, it's really hard to build a really quality episode
Right.
with little information. So the more information people give us, the easier it is. But then the better it is at the end for your telling of what you're bringing to the table.
Right. Yeah. The outline, folks, is very important. If you send an outline out to somebody, and have them fill this information in, you can put some really impactful bullet points in there for them to answer some questions that you can really start to break down and get 4 or 5 questions out of, and really allow your guest to take the knowledge, because they're subject matter experts of whatever they're coming on for, right? Because they're either living it because it's them, it's about them. So give them a chance to take it deeper. So cultivating good topics can be challenging, but once you do it, it's perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so definitely, when you're trying to look for your guests when you first get started, don't neglect your friends and family, friends of friends. Once again, reach out to them and just get, kind of get an idea of, what you're going to do.
Yeah, and actually, so right now I think we have 10 episodes at least planned, not recorded or anything, but we have 10 episodes planned for Movement Monday, and every single one so far is somebody that I know.
Right.
In one form or another, if I've spent a day with them or whatever. But that's not how it's going to stay forever. The thing is we're going to have to go looking for other. I'm going to have to go finding organizations that this fits the criteria to bring them on and be like, hey, do you want to come on and do an episode with us?
Right.
But we're also going to be relying on our listeners, the people that are listening to this right now. If you're like,
very good point.
Obviously it's up to me to make sure that the topics are brought out, but there's organizations, there's movements, there's things happening that sometimes I'll never know about without the listeners talking about it.
Word of mouth.
So word of mouth. And hey, if you guys listening to this are like, man, I got a guy that does this. I want him to go on your show. Tell us about him.
Yeah.
Tell us about her, them, whoever. And, but that's one of the ways we're going to get guests onto the episodes. The other way is through the guests. The people that we actually bring on the show, they're like, man, I love this. This was a great time, man. Hey, by the way, I got this buddy of mine. I think he'd be a great fit for this show.
Yep.
Perfect. Send that information to us. And that's how we build our episodes on top of obviously the outlines and everything else involved. But the show continues by the listeners, the guests, and us doing the work. It's not just all of us doing it all.
Yeah. Everyone's putting in good effort, putting in really good effort. Well, hey, Dan, you know what? I think it's time to kind of shut this thing down a little bit. What would you say is the one thing that people need to do if they're thinking about podcasting? What can you leave them with?
Well, big thing, don't be scared.
Don't be scared. I like that.
Don't be scared. Have fun with it. It's got to be challenging. Anything that we've ever done in life wasn't easy for us off the first time we do it. But the more practice you get, the better. Also, don't worry about spending the $2,000 or more dollars. Don't worry about spending a couple $100. start off small. Start off with a low budget. Start with no budget. You know, you can do it with your cell phone, and develop as you go. I think it's important to plan it a little bit. If you, especially like Movement Monday, the goal is to have a weekly episode. So I'm trying to record episodes before it gets to that Monday.
Right.
So if you want to do routines, make sure you have it scheduled and planned in advance, so that you don't stress yourself out by being like, oh, I got nothing to come out on Monday. But if it's not your thing where you don't want to do it on a weekly basis, try to stay consistent. That's the biggest thing. Stay low on your budget, develop as you go, stay consistent, and a lot of practice.
Man, I don't stay consistent at all. Not at all. Not even close.
But
Well,
but it's hard for yours because you're not, especially with veterans and sagas, veteran chats and sagas, you're not, with Movement Mondays, I can hound people because that's what they're doing. That's their mission. That's their life goal.
and they're probably wanting to, every last one of them are wanting to come on.
Exactly. Whereas, like, I feel like as a veteran, as we know, there's just times where life gets chaotic. We can't do it. Maybe we had it scheduled, and we're like, "Hey, man, I just can't. I'm going through some stuff. I can't do it this week."
Yeah.
Not a problem, man. It's all you.
The other
and
thing
that's
is,
why it's hard for you to stay consistent. Sorry.
yeah, and the other thing is veterans just don't like talking about themselves.
Yeah,
But-
I'm learning that.
But
personally.
we're trying to get veterans to come on to help other veterans by sharing their experiences. If we can, that's what we do. But hey, Dan, what is next on Movement Monday?
Well, as you know, we just had episode 2 come out on Monday. It's episode 2 is What is Movement? So definitely go check that out. We're going to talk about what movement is for for this episode and for the series. And so you guys have an idea what is to come. This coming Monday, we have episode 3 coming out. It's Friends from the Road, where we have Alex Casedo join us. He's on a movement like many that start for himself, but the journey has changed. But the movement has changed. The movement remains.
Yeah. Hey, I enjoyed Alex's visit, man. He came down. He was up in Oklahoma City. But his journey is fun to follow, folks. And he is on Instagram, Bum on Two Wheels. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, that's right. And he's also on Facebook. Also, everyone, I hope you guys got something out of this episode. There's a lot of stuff that's going and available out there for starting a podcast, but we hope that this helps you decide if starting one is right for you.
There we go. Hey, stay frosty, folks. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Remember, like, share, subscribe. We need some comments so we can start getting some stuff going. But hey, we'll catch you later. Copyright Heart of Volunteer 2020.